Lloyd Vogel Matthew Rhys is a cynical investigative reporter plagued by conflict with his dad, Chris Cooper, that's exacerbated by having a baby son. In need of some insight into his life, it's a happy coincidence that he's assigned to profile a famous kids' TV presenter, Mr. Rogers, played by Tom Hanks. Determined to find a dark secret in Rogers' life, Lloyd begins to be transformed by the positive influence of this legendary American pop culture presence. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood leans heavily on the legacy of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, the kids' TV show that it revolves around. The film's intro is a cunning reconstruction of the opening titles of that show, and several interludes have Hanks in character as Rogers, explaining essentially the plot of the film to the audience. That's integral to the fabric of the film. It's as much about the comforting rituals of that show and Hanks's kind of spot-on characterization of Rogers as it is about Lloyd's emotional journey. Now that's a little hard for me to get my head around. I'm from the UK, I never watched Mr. Rogers growing up, and there's no real cultural equivalent here. I can't imagine there being a feature film based around Blue Peter, for instance. As a result, some of this stuff feels a little weird at first. I'm not being reminded of a cultural legacy, but actually introduced to it for the first time. So Hanks speaking to camera for long periods of time is, frankly, a little unnerving. I hope this isn't. Happily, the film settles into its groove and focuses on the emotional story at its heart, which is touching and well performed. Lloyd meets Rogers at his studio, where everything runs behind because the guy is very nice but also a perfectionist, and this is our introduction to Hanks as Rogers. He's by turns impish and kooky, sincere and quiet. Slowly throughout the film, he peels back the layers of that character. It's a complex performance of a figure with a lot of expectations around him. It helps that the film has a lot of fun with Rogers as a character. In one scene, his mere presence on the subway makes everyone spontaneously sing the theme song to the show. It's like he's so nice, he's basically a very cozy reality warper. These sections work better than the continued TV show interludes, which can feel a little gimmicky with their vintage cameras, and a little too scattershot to be really effective. Now, with all the talking about feelings that Rogers does, the film is very emotional, but not in a sappy Hollywood way, sentimental as you might expect. Basically, it focuses on Lloyd's relationship with his dad thawing out over a difficult period of interpersonal conflict. Rogers quickly cottons onto that and begins to try and kind of support Lloyd through that experience. Rhys communicates a quite internal character arc in the film. Lloyd is clearly shocked at how present and thoughtful Rogers is, and how intentional he is in how he approaches his life and its challenges, and that begins to change him. It means that for all the fuzziness of the kid show that it plays with, the film has some hard emotional truths in it. At one point, Lloyd presses Rogers heavily on any difficulties he's had, searching for this kind of dark secret in his life, and Rogers replies, saddened, that no normal life is free of pain. It's a sensitive, wholesome treatment of difficult emotional territory, and because of its focus on talking about problems, it also invites the audience to be open with their feelings. I cried, basically for the last 15 minutes of the film, mostly because the movie made me feel like it was okay to express that. It invited me as a viewer to open up and be vulnerable. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood leans a little heavily on the audience's understanding of its subject, and has a few too many gimmicks in it. But underneath, it's a heartfelt, gentle comedy where two grown men talk about their feelings for a few hours, and honestly, I think we could do with more of those. That's it from me, but I'm really interested in hearing what you thought about the film, particularly if you're from the States and grew up with Mr. Rogers, because I have no idea what this would be like for people who have that experience. Have a good one. Bye for now.